So welcome to The Real Build. I am your host, Bill Reiman, your broker builder. And today I have a special guest coming from Kansas City, Missouri. He is part of the Charles L. Crane Agency, who serves the top 1% of businesses by creating dynamic partnerships between them and the top percent of insurance carriers. He specializes in commercial insurance, general liability, property insurance, work comp insurance, group health insurance, life and disability insurance, bonding. The list goes on and on. Very impressive there. He values time, most importantly, with his wife and his daughter above all else. And some important facts here. He is a diehard Kansas City Royals fan, loves spending time as a youth sports coach, and is active member of several other civic organizations. He is equally passionate in his leadership role as a member of his community's police advisory board, and he's also a member of the Arte Syndicate. Quinten Lovejoy, welcome to The Real Build. Thank you for taking the time to come on today, man.
Appreciate it, Bill. And most importantly, don't forget Go Chiefs on Sunday.
Yeah, forgot about can't forget about that one.
Hey, first time in 50 years, baby. We got to do this thing. I'm ready.
When I was younger, man, you're gonna hate me for this one. When I was younger, I was actually a 49ers fan in the Steve Young, Jerry Rice days. But if the Chiefs won, I wouldn't be upset about it. I kind of want to see Andy Reid get one. So
all good. We got the kid. Life is good. We've got the kid. So,
now I'm a Bears fan. I'm back to my Chicago roots. So
all right, very good, dude. Right on.
So anyway, what I like to get started with is, kind of talking about your background. I do this with everybody. So let's talk about who is Quinten Lovejoy.
So, well, first, thanks for having me, Bill. This is awesome. I love doing this. Hope I can provide some, at least one idea, some little bit of value for, any of your listeners. Just about me, man, nothing special. I grew up in a town of 5,000 people, fairly normal upbringing. When I was 19, I married my high school sweetheart. Went to college, earned my pre-law degree from Missouri Western State University. Then went on to secure my master's in business administration. After that, I just kind of did the corporate America thing for a while. My first job out of college was for a fabulous company out of St. Joseph, Missouri, Herzog Contracting. They do heavy civil construction. Do a lot of light rail, heavy rail, building and maintenance. And it was so great working there because I was working with the guys that ran the machinery back when the company was founded in 1969. And those were my mentors. And man, I just fell in love with guys that can build stuff. I'm just not conceptual like that. So people that can look at an empty, plot of land and say, oh, we're going to build this thing here, it blows my mind. So had a great time working there. Moved on. I eventually ended up, my last kind of quote unquote corporate gig was at an engineering firm in Kansas called Black and Beach. I was in the nuclear procurement area. So Bill, if you ever want to build a nuclear power plant, I can hook you up. So I know how to build those now. So, but yeah, man, that's just a little bit about me. Started in the insurance industry a little over 10 years ago, and away we went. So
yeah, I'll definitely give you a call on that nuclear power plant.
Right.
But it's an impressive background because you going through all those different stages in life and learning. Even the building industry too, and with the business you're in right now, you can relate to so many people because there's so many
Absolutely.
people in my industry also, and or tradesmen in general, because you actually did it. And that's what's important too, because not a lot of people in your business, in the insurance business, can relate. And if you can relate and come in, and if you sat down with me being a builder, and you know what the hell you're talking about, that's a big difference versus the guy.
Absolutely. If we can speak the same language, we work a lot better. So that's what was so valuable about it. Absolutely.
Yeah, which is awesome, man. So I kind of want to go into, let's discuss your business a little bit more.
Sure.
You being in the commercial insurance world, how did you get involved with that company? And why did you choose the commercial insurance route over your typical, homeowners insurance and stuff like that? What was your reasoning behind getting into
Yeah,
that
sure.
industry?
So a buddy of mine, he was working for what's called a direct writer insurance company based out of Minnesota. Right out of college, he started working for this company, and they would go on these lavish trips and do all this stuff. And I'd see him every few years, and we went to his wedding. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? What is this company? He's like, well, it's a commercial insurance company, and we sell. And I didn't understand any of what he was talking about. I nothing. I didn't understand a thing he was saying. But he's like, you should come work. I'm like, dude, I am not going to be an insurance salesman. Are you kidding me? I mean, it's like, people like insurance salesmen slightly more than used car dealers and IRS auditors, So it's like, dude, I'm not going to be an insurance huckster. Are you kidding me? And he's like, no, it's legit. And he put me in touch with a guy that actually recruited me for 3 years. I mean, he was on me, and just kept, he was just persistent with recruiting me. And for that reason, this company specialized in contractors. They specialized in manufacturing. Those were their two biggest things that they were good at. And so he knew kind of my background, with insurance background through my corporate experience, my law background, my business background. He knew that'd be a fit. So finally, as kind of the stars aligned and stuff, the territory that opened up was the territory where I had grown up. My hometown was the geographic center of the territory. And so I jumped on, and I'm glad I did. That guy that recruited me, he became a second father to me. He did so much for me in my life and got me on this route. And so I worked there for about 7 years, and man, I thought I would never leave that company. That company trained us so well in terms of knowledge of insurance and all that good stuff. But at the same time, when you train someone that well, uh, other opportunities present themselves, right? So, Crane started in St. Louis in 1885, and their model is very different in that every agent like myself that works with Crane, we're not an employee of Crane. I'm an independent contractor. I'm a business owner. I own my book of business. Every client that I sign is mine. It does not belong to the agency. Most insurance agencies, I sign Bill's Tire Shop, and Bill's Tire Shop belongs to the agency, and the agency pays me a commission.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? That commission goes down each year. New business, renewal. That commission that I make goes down. And so my incentives sometimes, if I'm a typical insurance agent, my incentive to work hard for that company goes down as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the unique thing about Crane is I get paid the same whether I write your new business or whether I renew your business. And so to me, that just helps me, stay motivated, and it helps me always keep, my current clients top of mind, because to me they're the same as new clients. So
Yeah, and I mean, if somebody came up to me and asked me, to get in the insurance world, I wouldn't have a clue what was going on. To a similar situation, man. There's so much involved in it too,
yeah.
and over time, it's like you said though, you having that mentorship and learning as much as you did really got you to the level that you are now, and then also
Yeah,
having those relationships and those connections in the building world like you did too, it was huge, and
absolutely.
experience.
Yeah.
Big time. So I want, like, let's get into a little bit too what different types, because I brushed on them in the intro there. Let's
Yeah.
talk about the different types of insurance that you're doing,
Yeah.
just for the listener. Obviously, this show, as you know, is more directed towards the customer on what to look for too, but there is a lot of business people that do listen to this. That's why this is such an important topic too. So let's brush on those.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, like you said, my primary focus is commercial insurance, the general liability, the work comp, the umbrella, the errors and omissions. You mentioned bonding. An increasing threat these days is cyber liability.
Mm-hmm.
If you have customer information, whether that's credit cards, you have employee information from, their health insurance enrollments and all these different things. An HRIS system, all those things are susceptible to cyber attacks, and that's a huge growing concern for a lot of business owners. 64% of cyber attacks are committed against small businesses. So they're not going after the corporate America. They're going after the mom and pop shops, the privately owned companies. So, but just by happenstance, I do a holistic approach with my clients, and so just by happenstance, I get involved in a lot of life insurance centered around estate planning and business continuation. Partners that have buy-sell agreements, and we fund those with life insurance and stuff. So, our agency is very robust. Whatever's out there that you need, we can find it. But my primary focus, like I said, is commercial insurance. I insure my mom and dad's house. My mom called me. She's like, "Can you insure our house?" I'm like, "Sure, Mom. Why not?" But that's not my focus. That's not what I don't even insure my own house. So if that tells you anything.
Yeah, it's like you said that not a lot of people, to be honest, and especially in a small business world, would be even thinking about cyber attacks and securing themselves with something like that too. So
yeah, man, and they're insanely cheap policies too. They're insanely easy to attain, and they're insanely cheap for the liability that they cover these days. Mm-hmm. So, everybody needs to get with their broker and knock out a cyber policy. And $500,000, $1 million, man, those they cost nothing these days. So.
Yeah, it's like, most business owners are probably, even if they're listening to this, well, what do I need that for? But then if you're their main, everybody doesn't understand that everything's mainly online right now too. Even if you got QuickBooks, where's it going? Whether you got the old QuickBooks that was a software program, it's still going through the internet somehow.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Yep. No doubt.
That's like something I never even most people wouldn't even think of too. So that's pretty cool. Any other insurance stuff just off this topic, kind of going off of that, that you would recommend that small business owners should be looking for, something similar to that?
Yeah, auto liability is a huge thing right now, and I know it's particularly huge where you are in Florida. Florida, Nevada, Louisiana, these states right now are just, everybody. I even heard President Trump the other day. He was at a deal in Louisiana, and he was talking to the attendees at the event about how crazy the auto insurance rates are getting. And man, it's a couple of things. The liability is being driven, through litigation and things like that, but that's driven by distracted driving. We've all got you drive down the road any day, people are watching Netflix or reading Kindles or playing with their GPS or their in-dash systems, or even the old ones of the lady putting the lipstick on in the mirror or whatever. You see it all. So a lot of that stuff's driving the liability side of things. But on the physical damage side of auto, just look at our vehicles now. It's like almost Jetsons, level. We've got sensors and cameras and these special resins they make the bumpers out of and all this stuff. And that stuff's not cheap. They made all these changes in the insurance in the auto industry for fuel efficiency standards and stuff like that. And guess what? Out goes the heavy steel, and stuff that used to make cars, and in comes all these resins. And where, when I was a kid, you probably bang out a bumper with, that you bump into something, take a rubber mallet to it and bang it out, right? Well, not anymore.
Now
you poke a hole in it. It's a plastic. It's a $1,200 bumper all of a sudden, and you got to replace the sensor and you got to replace the camera, all that stuff. Yeah. So that contributes a lot. So, for the business owner, the best way to combat some of that stuff, and I'm sure we'll get into it, but the more proactive you can show your insurance company that you are, the better view they will have of you, the more attractive of a risk you will be to them. So if you're a company owner, if you're a business owner, and you say, hey, we run motor vehicle reports every, before we hire any employee, and then we run them once a year, and we have a cell phone policy that says you can't talk on the cell phone, and we have telematics that tracks all the, all the driving statistics and everything. And we do this and we do, those things. If you can work with your agent to show the insurance company that you're proactive in these areas, you can at least insulate yourself a little bit from that stuff. But if you don't have any of that stuff, then the insurance companies are just going to take a bite out of your backside and say, okay, we're going to get premium from him because we need to make up for it for the guy that's being, proactive in his program. So there's a lot of things people can do. And every one of my clients, I drill them and drill them and drill them on being proactive, in those specific areas. So
yeah, and you're right. It is on the responsibility of the business owner to do a proper background check on licenses and so on too. I mean, if they
sure.
can't drive a work vehicle, then there's probably an issue there. They probably shouldn't be working for you for some
Usually
other reason.
so, yeah. Usually there's a problem. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and I agree with you too. I mean, everything's so expensive on vehicles. I clipped my tail light on my truck on accident with my trash can while I was wheeling it out one night, and it cracked
Yeah.
it. And then I found
Yeah.
out all of a sudden the computers in my whole truck started malfunctioning. And then I take it to the dealership, and they said there's a chip in the tail light. Now, why
Yep.
would you put a computer or some module in my tail light? Is
Right.
what they
Right.
said, that controls a lot of the front end electronics. I'm like, why would they put a module? It's just the technology on these things now, and
Crazy,
that's
man.
where the rates and everything, like you said. I mean, to
Absolutely.
replace one of those touch screens is probably 10 grand. So
Oh
it's
yeah. Yeah. My this past summer, my wife clipped, she was making an ice cream run to Sonic for us. And, she clipped the mirror backing out, and she came home and she was, oh, I busted the mirror. And I went out and looked at it, and some little plastic off the bottom was busted. And, so I get online, I'm looking at it, it was like $400 to replace it. I said, sorry, it works fine. It looks fine. Only you and I are going to know it's there. We're not
yeah,
replacing the mirror. So
yeah.
$400 for a mirror.
That's what I
So
was doing with that tail light too. I was like, nobody's gonna see. You can't even see the little crack in it. But then
yeah.
moisture got in it, and then the whole truck
Yep.
started,
Yep.
shutting down. So I'm just
Isn't
like,
it crazy? It's crazy,
you
man.
gotta be
Yeah.
kidding me.
It's
So
crazy.
$700 later for a new tail light. So anyway,
Yeah.
like I said, as you know, this show's kind of directed more towards the real estate and construction industry, but I also have a lot of business people, business owners that listen to the show. So, I want to talk about getting insurance for business owners. How would a business owner go about getting insurance? What are the typical ways or stages of doing it? Just briefly.
Um, yeah. Well, typical ways, I guess, normally, it's almost most of the time, it's just like anything, a
Hmm.
business owner, an individual, you call up your buddy, hey, who do you know? Who do you got? Who do you use?
Yeah.
Someone from your chamber of commerce or your golf league or whatever. Um, but what I see a lot, and going back to that company I worked for, before I came to Crane, a lot of carriers and a lot of agencies get involved with trade associations and buying groups. So you might go to your trade association event, and they have a recommended carrier. When I worked with that company, I mean, we had the recommendations of PHCC and ACA and NICA, Linux, SMACNA, NTMA. All these big national trade associations and buying groups, and it was just simply based off of the guys like me and my cohorts in the field, just our knowledge of their industry.
Hmm.
So a lot of times people can call up. I have a client that owns a huge chain of Domino's pizzas. And they have a trade association. And they have recommended carriers, and so regardless of what industry you're in, typically you can find a trade association, a buying group, and they usually will have a recommendation. Otherwise, any good any good insurance agent will know what markets, and when I say markets, I mean insurance companies.
Hmm.
They'll know what any good insurance companies for that individual risk. So if you own a roofing company, I know what companies do those really well. If you own a Domino's Pizza, I know what companies do those really well. So just depends on the industry. But that's usually a good place to start is ask your trade association or your buying group who they would recommend.
And that's why they hire you to help them find that perfect.
Right on. Yeah. Yeah. Ideally, yes.
Once they figure it out and they need a better policy or need that guidance, that's when they hire you. That's when you take control there.
You
So
bet.
that's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what about it, what is the customer's main concern about obtaining insurance? How can you make this process easier?
Yeah, good question. The thing I get most often, is people are just too busy, man. It's
Hmm.
time consuming, and it's a time consuming process. Hey
Yeah.
Bill, I need your auto list, I need your driver's list, I need your payrolls, I need your, all this stuff, and it's just like, shoot me now, please. This process is just awful. And you know what? There's a excuse me. There's that scientific element to it. That yes, there is data that needs to go in and go out. But what I do, for my clients is we're I run an assessment based process. Okay, and so before I ask you, Bill, for instance, for a single thing, I'm going to take you through my assessment. I'm going to take you through my process. And normally, if someone's not even willing to engage in a 15-minute conversation that answers a few questions,
Hmm.
they're typically not someone that I'll work with,
Yeah.
because they typically commoditize the program, and it doesn't matter whether you're drinking Aquafina or Dasani bottled water. So so what we'll do is I have a proprietary process that we've developed, and I'll take people through that. And if we arrive at a place where, you know, any number of things can happen, either the questions I've asked them, the process I've taken them through, a lot of times those people will say, well, why are you asking me these questions? What does any of this mean? What my agent's not asked me that stuff before. What does a return to light duty program, what does that even mean?
Hmm.
These sorts of things, and so a lot of times that process opens up the door for me to come in and do what I do.
Hmm.
Other times, we'll find a tweak or two, that needs to be made. Oh, there might, the entity that owns your building that your company rents from is not named on your policy. Oh, okay, that's an easy fix. Should your guy have caught it? Of course he should have. But is it a thing where, I'm going to dump all over the guy for it? No, nothing like that. But, if I can provide value and give somebody a tweak or two or some different ideas to go take to their guy that they've been with 10, 15, 20 years, that's great.
Hmm.
Um, so, but usually, like I said, that process reveals more than a few issues. And so I want to make sure that the business owners I work with are willing to put forth, the good faith effort that I'm going to put forth in working for them. And if it's just somebody that's just price shopping or trying to leverage the marketplace or whatever, that doesn't allow me to do my best work. And as you know better than anybody, when you have my attention, you have my time. When you have my time, you have my money.
Hmm.
So time is money for everybody. And I think just engaging in those transparent processes where it's everyone understands expectations up front saves a lot of trouble and a lot of hassle in the end. So we try to set that
No,
up
yeah.
from the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And I like what you're doing there with setting the expectations, having those questions up front too.
Yeah.
But question two, so you actually go through, so if they have prior insurance, you'll actually go through, sit down and kind of look at what they can adjust and what not to help them out or what they're possibly missing too. You actually do that, is
Yeah,
what you're saying?
sometimes, a lot of times I do that. Like I said, my process, I've developed this over the course of my
Hmm.
career, and it's literally just a series of yes and no and I don't know questions.
Hmm.
Um, and obviously, the more yeses there are, the better off the person is. If there's some
Hmm.
no's and I don't knows and what are you talking about and I've never heard that word before or whatever, then we've got some problems. And so that's when those problems reveal themselves. That's when I can say, okay, well, we've got these issues. We've identified these issues. You can fix those with your guy. You can fix them with me, or we can jump into the more scientific piece of this and really get to work on this and let me represent you. And so yeah, every situation is different, and it just depends on the need of the prospect of the client. You know.
Well, that says a lot about you too, is actually you sitting down and being willing to not sell them on anything up front. You saying, okay, I'll
Yeah.
help you out with the process, even with your guy of 20 years,
Right.
because most people, most salespeople in general, they want the business and they're going to jump
Right.
down your throat to get that
Right.
business too.
Call you every day, text you every day. Hey, did you get my email? That stuff. What I tell people a lot of times, and it's always surprises them when I say this, is I always say, hey, I just want to be in second place,
Mm-hmm.
which is weird, for us as business owners and competitive guys and stuff. But it has application in my business because someday you will switch insurance carriers.
Mm-hmm.
Someday it'll happen. A claim will go uncovered. A premium will get too high. The guy will just make you mad or whatever. Someday you will switch insurance carriers. And if I'm sitting there in that second place seat, we've had the relationship, we've built it over that course of time, and I'm willing to just be there to provide value. I have people that call me all the time. Hey, my guy has a question about this. And I'm helping their guy, renew his business,
Mm-hmm.
or let me bounce this off of you. My guy wants to do that. And granted, do I have to deprioritize that stuff? Yeah, sometimes I do. I mean, I'm just like anybody else. I've got bills to pay and a family to feed. But you know what? This is a service industry, and I'm about service, and I'm about taking care of people first, and especially small businesses, dude. I mean, I can't insure every company in the world. That's fine. There's thousands of people just like me.
You'd love to do that, but
yeah, right. So just give me a decent slice of it, and I'm happy. I can't insure every business on the planet, but so that's why I'm willing to do that stuff. And most of the people that I work with and that I'm around, like I said, they're the mom and pop shops. They're the first, second, third generation company owners. And to me, that means a lot to me, because there's multi-generational companies in my family, that have been passed from generation to generation. And so that's who I'm out here to serve. I mean, corporate America is not my deal. And I'm out here to serve the family-owned businesses, the people that started the thing, and let's set them up for success for generations to come. So that's what I'm all about.
Well, it's being top of mind, and I've said this in a lot of past shows too. It's you saying being in the second place spot. It's you playing the long term too, is what you're
Sure.
doing. Because one thing that I don't like, and especially being in the construction industry too, because I get, especially with LinkedIn, I get messages all the time. People just send me the request, and all of a sudden it's an instant, you get the message right away being like, hey man, use us for this, this, and this. If they actually took the time and said, hey, I know you probably have another subcontractor doing your work, but we do this, this, and this. I'm happy to help you or give you any kind of estimate or quote or answer questions or whatever, which most people don't say that, and then I just want to push them all away, and I instantly unadd them too, because I don't want, it's like you just said 100%, man. It's I've even helped people that are building with other builders right now, because they've called me, they dealt with me in the past. I said, if you ever need, I still have emails that go out that say, if you ever need help with anything, let me know. I'm happy to answer any questions. They've actually called me and said, well, the permits are taking this thing, and he said has to do this. Do you think that's right? I'm not going to step on other builders' toes, but when something's not right, I'm going to tell them and be honest with them.
Absolutely.
And so when they go to build that second house, God knows when, 10 years from now, but still, hopefully I'll still be around building by then too. So, but
you've planted that seed. You've planted that seed, and it'll grow, and inevitably that what you put out, you'll get back.
Exactly.
So you put out value, you put out service, you put out humility, and the spirit of helpfulness, you'll get that back from people. So it's really not any more complicated than that. So
exactly. Spot on, man. So let's talk about some special insurance programs that can benefit the customer. How does a customer get some of these programs, or what are they?
First of all, and I alluded to it, the first thing I would say is just like, working with an agent that knows your specific business or your trade very, very well.
Okay.
Um, we have I have a cohort at Crane, and he runs his entire book of business is pest control. Every one of his clients are pest control clients. And I don't know a lot about it. I know some about it. I know enough that I can write a good policy for it. But I mean, you want to talk about somebody that knows pest control, this guy knows it, So I mean, and we have another guy that all he does is restaurants, and we have another guy that just does YMCAs and stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm more of a generalist in that I know a lot about a lot of different industries, but if you've got something real niche, real special, then you probably ought to find somebody that knows that. It's like seeing a medical specialist. If my wife broke her wrist a couple of years ago, and we didn't go to our family doctor in our town of 10,000 people. We went and found the best orthopedist we could, got referrals, called my friends down in the city, and we ended up with the best wrist hand specialist in the country. And so it's kind of the same with insurance. Go find this, go find the specialist. And then if the agent does understand your industry, they will know which insurance carriers to go talk to. So I like I said, if you have a roofing company, I know exactly who can do roofers very, very well. If you're a plumber, I know who does plumbers very, very well. If you're if you franchise out your operations or whatever, I know who does those. So that's where the power of the agency itself can come into play. Crane, where I am, we specialize in contracting and manufacturing. And we have carriers that people sometimes they don't even know they exist, but they're the absolute best carriers in the world for those specific industries. Whereas the local guy down on the corner that you might see at the golf club that just owns Joe's insurance agency, he might have the national name carriers that you see on TV, and those are good insurance companies, but there might be something better. And so the agencies and the brokers and the people that know those industries very, very well, that specialize in them, they're going to have those relationships. And that's what Crane, Crane is so valuable to me in that regard, in that they provide me these markets that literally no one else in my state or in the states surrounding me, none of them have. So we're not a huge insurance house like a Lockton or somebody like that. That's the granddaddy of them all, right? But we're right there in that middle ground where we serve our niche very, very well. Lockton would insure like Lockton insures all the Chipotle restaurants, and like DirecTV and AT&T. I wouldn't have a clue how to do that. I wouldn't have a clue how to insure DirecTV or AT&T. But my niche is just kind of that step down below those companies. And so the agency dynamic and the agent dynamic are very, very important in those regards. So.
Yeah, and I mean, you having that niche too is where you can actually give a more personal touch to the whole entire thing too, to where you can constantly be in communication, and that's a huge topic we'll get into too. And and people can actually get a hold of you and get in touch, because I doubt if they're going with the giant insurance company that's representing AT&T, they're going to get a good answer on stuff.
You usually have a few layers of bureaucracy to work through there. You get the low level account execs or whatever. So the rest of them are zipping around, working 2 days a week, golfing the other 5. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
a big question here. So what are you doing to stand out from the rest of there's so many insurance agents out there and commercial too. So what are you doing to stand out from the rest of them? And what should people take notice of when choosing an insurance agent?
That's an
or a
interesting
commercial
question.
insurance agent, I should say.
Yeah. So, again, I alluded to it again. I own my own business. I own my book of business. Most agents are W-2 employees that work for the insurance agency. They don't own the book, they don't own their client. That in and of itself is very, very different.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking recently, a new client that I signed. Actually, I leave from here to go see him later this week in the Dallas area. That was one of the first questions he asked me when we started talking about his program. He said, who owns my business? And I was like, well, what do you mean? He said, do you own your book, or does somebody else own it? I said, oh no, I own it. And that question in and of itself opened up the door for me to go write his business. I'd never been confronted with it like that before.
Yeah.
And it made a difference to him, because he's a fourth generation, business owner, and he wants to know that he's not just another thing on a whiteboard, in the sales manager's, office at an insurance agency. So he brought that up, and so that in and of itself, helps me stand out. But like I said, that process that I talked about earlier, it's taken a long time to develop that process, and to really know, having worked for an insurance company before and been trained by an insurance company, I understand how they think. I understand how rates are calculated. I understand what their perspective is on things, and I understand how insurance companies make their money, and what language to speak to them to really secure the best programming, the best pricing. I understand all that stuff because I was trained by an insurance company, a very, very good one, And so what my process does is it reverse engineers all of that, because the easiest thing to do, well, let me take that back. The hardest thing to do in the world is to change an insurance company's mind. Once they have their mind made up, they are decided, So the key is, how do we make their minds up for them up front? That's my job, and to do that, that's what my assessment does. That's what all the questions I ask, that's what they do. And so that really has helped me stand out. Usually I tell my insurance buddies all the time, they're like, we talk about, insurance nerds sit around in a bar and they talk about, well, what's your close ratio? What's this? I tell guys, I'm like, man, I don't really track my close ratio, because if I can get in the door, usually that's the biggest game. Usually it's just game over. If I can get in the door, if I can convince you to let me in the door to have a conversation, typically it's game over, because number one, we set those expectations like we talked about up front. I understand that you're not just a price shopper. You're not looking for low buck Chuck to come in. That's not my game, right? And then we've set those ground rules up front, and we're working really well together. Then we go through the process, and that really solidifies things. And then it's just kind of formalities from there. That's really how I set up my practice, and it works, man. And that's how I stand out. Is just the process and the relationship that starts from the very beginning of open communication, transparency, and let's work from here. So
yeah, some of the most important things: open communication, building that, like you said earlier too, setting the expectation up front, which and then getting through the door is one of the most important things, obviously. But once you're in through the door, you gain that trust, and then you're up front. I mean, you're saying,
yeah.
I'm not going to be the cheapest insurance guy. If you're looking for the cheap guy, then
Right.
good luck to you, because more than
Right.
likely it's going to.
My favorite people to work with and my favorite prospects, the people that go to the top of my prospect list, are the guys that say, nope, we're happy. We've been somewhere 20 years. Great. That's exactly what I want to hear. Because if I can ever get in that door, I know I'll find something.
Yeah.
And like I said, well, you can either fix a thing or two, or they're going to be saying, wow, this has been broken for 20 years. That's not cool. Let's have a bigger conversation, So, that's who I like to work with. People that think they're happy.
And that's the right mentality to have in any business too, because if you can just, like you said, keep yourself in that second place for these people that have been loyal to somebody for 20 years,
Right.
And that's the way, like I always bring this up to people that contact me. They want our business. Some of them are pretty persistent too, but we're pretty loyal when it comes, unless, a subcontractor really screws us somehow. you
Right.
know, but we maintain our subcontractors pretty good, because as long as they're doing good quality work, that's what we're all
Yeah.
about as a business. And we're not going to
Right.
kind of go somewhere else unless we see the price keep jumping too and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But it's like you said,
Absolutely.
eventually, you know, something is going to happen. You don't know what, and then you're going to have to use somebody else. So
Right.
who are you going to use? The
Right.
guy that's been there waiting, not pressuring you, not, you know, and telling you that there's stuff that he could come in and fix, but
Yeah.
he's standing back and saying, okay, I'm not going to step on anybody's toes. That's the first person that's going to come to my mind. That's the way I
So,
like to deal with business too. Like, and I do
yeah.
it the same way as you. I just, people that are pressure sales, man, it'll work on some people, but people like me, it just drives me nuts.
That's
So,
not me. And I beat myself up, you know, honestly, I beat myself up about that. I'm like, man, you're always, you know, kind of laid back and being the nice guy. And, you know, I see cohorts that write more business than I do. And, you know, I just had this conversation with the president of our firm the other day. I told him, I'm like, Tom, look, man, I'm like, I know there's guys here with bigger books than me, and I know they grow faster than I do. And I know that, you know, they make me, you know, kind of look bad, for lack of a better term. I said, but
mm-hmm,
you know, let's see where they are in 5 years and 10 years. You know, this is, like you said, this is the long game, man. And I
mm-hmm,
told him the other day, I said, look, every piece of business I write, it's going to be within the customer profile that I want to work with. It's going to be written correctly. It's
mm-hmm,
going to be written ethically and morally. I said, I've never had an errors and omissions claim on my, you know, in my career. And I'm proud of that. I've got buddies that have had, you know, it's like a bodily function, you know, and so, so that's just not how I'm going to do things. And so, you know, those things, they do make a difference to people, I think. So,
oh no, big time. Because people are going to see that too, and it's the trust factor. If you screw
sure.
up, then that's the
Yeah.
way any business person. You screw up, then you being in business too, you're going to evaluate. Well, what the hell, you
Right.
know? It's like,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
then this guy's doing it this. All right, well maybe I got to go find somebody else, and then
Right.
who's waiting there for the second
Yep.
person? You know, and
Yep.
it happens all the time. It's just you playing the long term game over time, and I'm sure you the guy, your head, your boss is probably, he probably knows. I mean, he did the
Oh, he
same
does.
thing. I'm
Yeah.
sure
Yeah.
he did the
Absolutely.
same
They
thing to get
recognize.
where he's at. I'm sure. So it's
Right.
just over
Right.
time. That's
They
what.
recognize it. They appreciate it. But,
Yeah,
you know, yeah.
and everybody should too. I mean, I'd rather have somebody that you can trust and you know isn't going to screw up over somebody that's just it's like a, you know, a pit bull on you trying to get your business. It's like,
Right. Right.
you know.
Right.
So anyway, so this question can be kind of broad. I mean, I want to kind of just ask and see if you could answer it in whatever kind of way. What do insurance rates kind of look like, and how can somebody get the best rate on insurance? And I know that's kind of broad. It might be through you and what your search is, but just for the
Sure.
customer to get a little bit more understanding on
Yeah. So, you know, it depends on what we're talking about. You know, like in the world of work comp right now, man, medical care is getting better. We're getting workers back to work quicker. You know, care is much more streamlined. You know, so right now work comp rates are really good. You
that. Mm-hmm.
know, and so you know, so that's one area that if you haven't taken a good hard look at your work comp for a while, then now would probably be the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
There's two big headaches right now for insurance for business owners, and I mentioned, you know, the auto rates, you know, liability, physical damage, all that stuff. But the other thing is property rates. You know, we've had a lot of catastrophic property issues in the last couple of years. You know, fires in California, hurricanes where you are,
Mm-hmm.
you know, all that stuff. And whether I like it in the middle of Missouri, you know, whether I like it or not, I have to help insurance companies offset that somehow. You know, because, you know, insurance companies are really good at something, and it's called making money. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they're not going to lose money very often. So they're going to find ways to hedge against those catastrophic losses. You know, I was looking at a chart the other day, and it showed where the last 3 years have had more catastrophic losses than even after 9/11. So
Yeah.
just put that in perspective. All the property and everything that was lost in 9/11 compared to some of the natural disasters we've had recently. These natural disasters are making 9/11 in terms of property loss. They're just overshadowing it big time.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that has an impact on us. How can someone get the best rate? I referred to that earlier as well. The proactiveness, with what you're doing, driving policies, what your discrimination and harassment policies are, MVRs. Are you a drug-free workplace? I know that's a struggle sometimes in the contractor world. Any blue collar, heavy blue collar industry is going to have problems, in those respects. But it's better to address those things and at least have the company policies in place before you're doing a deposition. I do. I work with contractors all over the place, and they're like, "You should come try to hire a drug-free guy in my industry." I'm like, "Look, I understand. I get what you're saying. I do. And in society's relaxing view of marijuana use and different things, I get it. I understand the reality on the ground. Okay. At the same time, if we can hedge that as business owners, against that eventuality that we're going to end up on a witness stand or in a deposition. Mr. Reiman, did you have a drug-free work policy? Well, no, we hired people. What? Oh, really? So the guy that you hired went in and stole, this merchandise or assaulted that homeowner or did that, whatever, all of a sudden now you look bad, So, but if you're able to sit there and confidently say, yeah, we had a policy against drug-free. We drug test every year. We do these things. We monitor social media. We do this stuff for our employees, and he violated the policy. That's a much easier thing to talk to an attorney about than just say, "Nah, we didn't have it in place." So return to light duty, that's big. And that's so big for a lot of my contractors. The guy back strain, whatever, is crawling around on the ground doing stuff. Has a strained muscle. Guess what? It's better to pay him to come in and push a broom or answer a phone or file some paperwork than it is for him to sit at home on the couch during daytime TV when the trial attorneys are running all their ads on television, right? Have you been injured on the job? That's the last guy you want talking to your employee, because so if you can get them back to work from a return to light duty perspective, that's so huge. Because in most states, say, for instance, you had a $100,000 work comp claim. If it's a medical only claim, you can reduce that by 70% that's reported into NCCI. And that impacts your experience mod huge. So the more indemnity, meaning the more paid time off that person has, the worse off you are. The more medical only you have, the better off you are. So if you have those policies in place up front, a lot of your contractors, really need to look at their subcontractor agreement. Look at the language in your contracts between you and your subs. Who assumes the risk? Who takes the risk when? Are you requiring them to provide certificates of insurance? If you do, is it to the level that you are insured to? What are you? What makes all those things, all these little things? Like I said, the reverse engineering process. What makes you stand out? You've asked me what makes me stand out as an insurance agent. What makes you stand out as a company, as a business? What makes you stand out to the insurance carriers? You know what I mean? So what makes you an attractive risk? There's these questions, these are these issues that I constantly see that business owners just are not being asked. And a lot of business owners leave so much on the table in terms of coverage and premium and protection because they're just not being asked these questions, and they're not being marketed properly to the insurance world, And so if that's how you get those best rates, man, that's how it happens.
No, that's huge right there too. It's in you being in the business, you asking the proper questions like you are too, and making that business owner understand it more too. That's the most difficult stuff as a business owner, even in a construction industry. Half the
Sure.
stuff you're like, do I even need this? What do I need that for? What do I need this for? You
Right.
know, and me being in a family business too, and having my dad, who's as old school as he is, you know, and it's, what do I need that for? What am I spending money on that for? You know, and it's just,
Right.
and you hear it, and but because it's not explained well enough too, you know, to these business owners, and you being able to explain it in a way, and like from the beginning, like we talked about, you being involved in these industries too gave you a better perspective of it and
Sure.
what should be required too, which is huge.
Sure.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
what about cost associated with obtaining insurance? Is there a typical cost or amount that people to start? I just so briefly so people know that are getting into the construction industry.
Yeah, sure. It depends on the policy. Most policies have a 10 pay or 12 pay option. Of course, insurance companies love it if you pay all up front. If you can do that, if you got that cash around, by all means, they'll give you a hefty. I've got clients that pay their entire premium up front, and man, they get some pretty good looking discounts for doing that. So, and then just depending on the carrier, your down payment's usually 10% or 25% of the annual premium. And sometimes that depends on how you want to pay. Some of my clients pay monthly, some of them pay quarterly. And the down payments are affected by all those. So. But your question is interesting because I always hear that. Well, what's it going to cost?
Mm-hmm.
How much is my insurance? And I hear that a lot, and it always makes me kind of laugh because people think of their insurance cost as their premium, right? And that's it. Well, that's only a third of the equation, man. Your insurance cost, your insurance spend, is your premium plus your deductibles plus uncovered claims. I mean, if you have $100,000 claim that's uncovered, your insurance cost just went up $100,000. That's the way I look at it. And that's a calculation, and that's key to consider, not just from your cash flow and your that has an impact on your job costs, obviously, and your accounting and all that stuff. If you had $100,000 uncovered claim, are you going to attribute that all to one job, and show a loss on that one job? Or are you going to, those are questions that CPA, and guess what? Now you get to spend money sitting down with your CPA and figuring out that stuff as well. So, or think about it from a work comp perspective. If there was something that we could do to lower your work comp mod just 2 or 3 points, those 2 or 3 points represent real dollars, and that could be the difference between you winning a bid, winning a job, or not. So, these little bitty things like that, it's what a lot of agents fail. A, they fail to understand it. And B, they fail to communicate it to their clients. So, they leave a lot on the tables sometimes. So, those are some of the costs associated with insurance. It can be as little from, that whole topic can range from, down payments to losing jobs because we had to, spend that extra little premium on work comp, for the year. So, yeah.
It's, I mean, and it keeps going back to the same thing, which is communication,
Sure.
and that's the thing of being upfront with the client too. And that's where I wanted to get into this question too, because
Sure.
every insurance agent should provide exceptional customer service, as you know, by extensive professional communication with every customer. How are you communicating better to the customer? You brushed on this. Let's go deeper into it.
Yeah, absolutely. My support team, man, they make me look so good. They're incredible. We understand, we're talking about contractors here, we understand you guys are fast paced. You're 100 miles an hour. You are on the road. You're in the truck. You're on the job site every single day. You don't have time to sit around and wait for a certificate of insurance, right? You don't have time to sit there at the bid letting and decide, is my bond issued or is it not? So that starts up front with us by we review COIs, routinely. Hey, Bill, ABC sub, do you need that one anymore? Or, hey, you did work for this church 2 years ago. Do you still need that COI? And that's just all efficiencies. That's just all processes to improve efficiency. Okay. Because if we have to dig through all these certs, they're hard to find. But if it was a one-off job that we can get rid of 10 of those out of your file, that we don't have to worry about those anymore, guess what? Now all of a sudden your process goes much more smoothly. And guess what? Your insurance company is also more comfortable, because every time you issue a COI, that's exposure, man. That's either direct or third-party exposure. And if you have less exposure, guess what? The insurance company loves you even more. So if we're weeding out COIs and getting those off the books when it's appropriate, man, guess what? It's another proactive step you can take to really help your business. So COIs are so important. I have a number of clients that we sit down every single quarter and we review payrolls, we review revenues, and we adjust midstream. I have some clients that just say, I don't even want to mess with that until renewal time, but I have other clients that are so cash flow sensitive, they're so budget sensitive, that we sit down every quarter, and if we can adjust their payrolls and their revenues and their GL receipts and all this stuff, we can adjust those real time, then it really helps them remain cutting edge competitive with their cash flow and bidding those projects. So and I guess the final thing I would say in terms of customer service is just, and claims reviews are so important, man. At a minimum, we review open and ongoing claims with our clients, at a minimum on a quarterly basis. Depending on the client, we'll review them on a monthly basis sometimes. I'm helping a friend that's in the syndicate. He owns a big company, and he's had a claim hanging out there for 3 years. And he sent me the fact scenario. He sent me all the notes from the insurance carrier. He sent me all the notes from the agency. And I've gotten with my legal team and with my claims review team, and I've said, guys, they've missed a lot here. What is going on? And we're giving him some feedback. What would we have done differently in this situation? Well, we would have engaged the insurance company directly. We would have ensured the communication was effective. We would have ensured, all these different things that went on in this basis. And this thing's been open for 3 years. It's been impacting his mod for 3 years. And guess what? If you have a claim that's been open for 3 years, it gets closed today. Guess what? It hangs around on your mod for another 3 years. So now all of a sudden, Bob employee gets hurt 3 years ago. Then it hangs around for another 3 years. This Bob's hung around for 10, almost a decade now, and he quit working, 60 days after he started, was on that job site. I see that stuff all the time, and it just drives me nuts. And so, from that customer service perspective, man, those claims reviews, those payroll reviews, those COI reviews, all that stuff is so crucial, and and it just helps you guys so much, run your business and do what you do even better. So that's my goal, is to help my clients run a more effective business. So
yeah, and then that's the best communication possible, is you as an insurance agent always looking at that stuff for them. That's what you should be doing, and being communicating every quarter, like you said too, is unbelievable, to save them some money here and there, maybe tweak something that's going to get it a little bit better. Because not a lot of insurance agents do that. They just do the yearlies, and they'll come around a year or whatever.
Yeah, we call it the money zone. We call it the money zone. The money zone is 90 days before renewal. And guess what? 90 days before renewal is when we all start banging on your door, right? Hey, Bill, you want to quote this year? This kind of stuff. And that's when your guy shows up, oh man, I haven't heard from him. Yeah, he sent me some popcorn and a calendar back at Christmas. I remember that, But and that's when most agents do their best work, is in the money zone, And if you're not, I don't speak that language. It just doesn't work for me. So, all my clients have my direct cell phone. I've handled calls on Christmas. I've handled calls on Thanksgiving. I've been out to claims situations, on Saturday evenings, Sunday mornings, whatever. I've been out there, and my people know how to get a hold of me 24 hours a day. And my support team behind me, that's where the real value is in those guys, because one of the guys on my team, he literally wrote the book on work comp. He's literally written a textbook about work comp. So I can take his ideas, and guess what? It makes me look really good. And so as much as I know about work comp, I've not written a book on it. So, you know.
So I always like going into this too off of that topic with the communication. So I mean, obviously with you guiding customers through the process, that's a big part of communication too. So let's talk about your long-term angle with customers a little bit more. You know, obviously, building long-term relationships with every customer is huge. I talk about this with every business owner that comes on this show. So
Sure.
what do you offer that others don't, that customers need to pay attention to prior to, looking for an insurance company or so on? How do you play that long term with your customers?
Yeah. I mean, this is where I usually get my soapbox out and stand on it and stomp my feet a little bit, because insurance agents have sold policies as a commodity for way too long, and we have conditioned our clients and buyers of insurance. We've conditioned them to do the same, and that's our fault as an industry. That's our fault. It's Coke versus Pepsi. What's the difference? It's all the same, right? I hear that all the time. And that just, and so I always tell people, if you get even just a whiff of your guy just doing insurance the same old boring way, like I talked about, here, Bill, fill out this application, get me your stuff, if you get a whiff of that, man, just chances are you're going to end up with what you've always had. It's going to be the same experience with the same guy. But if you can find a person that's going to take the time to understand you, your business, your company culture, I've been to some of the best company cultures. Sean Henry, EHS in Florida. I know you've talked to him. I spent a day down there with him, and I'm still out of breath. I mean, and that place is just popping. The culture is great. Chris and Leanne Saunders, they're in the syndicate with me. I spent 2 days with them. Those people, they put me up in their house. They're like, oh, don't stay in a hotel. You're going to stay at our house, And that's just the culture within their company is like that. It's family. Andy Aranda, I was spending he's here in Las Vegas, or he's here in San Francisco. I was in their office yesterday, man, and their culture is just so good. And so if insurance carriers can understand, hey, we're a great company, but we're also a great culture, man, I mean, that's so money. Your core values, I put I put his company's core values in my cover letter that I send to my insurance carriers for him. And that makes a difference to them when they see that kind of stuff. It makes you stand out. It makes your company go to the top of the stack for that insurance carrier. Makes the average insurance carrier gets 90 submissions a month. You know what? And they're a person just like you and I, and they have families, and they want to go home and nuke their supper and have a nice evening with their family, just like you and I do, right? But man, you get a stack of 90 insurance submissions, and you look at that. You know what? At the end of the day, there's a human element, and you're just going to go through there and you're going to hand out quotes, right? But if you get one of my submissions, and I've got a cover letter that's 6 to 10 pages long that talks about your company and your core values and your culture and your proactiveness and your experience. And hey, Andy Aranda's been on the cover of My Vegas magazine twice, and his wife is his rock star, business owner and all this stuff. That makes a difference to these insurance carriers, dude. And that's what sets you apart from your competition. Like I said earlier, if you could stand apart from your competition in these insurance companies, man, that's where insurance stops being a commodity and it begins looking like another tool that's in your tool belt. You know what I mean? And you can use it as a resource. Recently I was doing a policy review for a company, and they ship high value electronics all over the country, right? And they have to charge their customers, they have to charge them for the UPS insurance, right? And it was costing them like $1,000, So hey, here's a bid for $10,000, and guess what? You can insure it for another $1,000 through UPS. And so that's just the way it was always done in their industry. That's how every one of my clients' competitors do the same thing, right? Well, I took over their policy. I'm reading through their policy. I'm like, hey, why are you charging people for shipping out those tablets, those phones, all that stuff? Well, we have to insure it. I'm like, right here in your policy is property and transit coverage. And guess what? You've got $50,000 at any one time that you can insure those and not charge your customer for it, right? So all of a sudden now they've got a competitive advantage against all of their competition. They're saving their clients money. That helps them make more money. When they make more money, things are better for the business owner. Things are better for the employees. Things are better for their, so that's the difference between a commodity that you have to buy an insurance policy and really having something that's a tool that you can utilize to better your company, better your employees' lives, And so now this client, man, he's like, we've had this policy 10 years. Why have we not been? I'm like, bro, I can't help you. I can't answer that question. Let's go call your old insurance guy if you want. We'll ask him why he didn't catch this for 10 years. But guess what? We caught it. Now you have a profit center in your company. Now you have a competitive advantage against your competition, and life's great, And so that's value beyond just an insurance policy boat anchor that sits on your shelf, for 11 months out of the year. That's the difference for people so often.
No, everything you just said there was so spot on too, because you're not acting like a typical insurance. You're just a typical insurance guy that's, comes in, once that 90-day mark, like we talked about, or once a year happens, right. You're actually going above and beyond for these people. And then you also, the core values, you establishing right off the bat, actually going all in on, what you're doing for the customer and going above and beyond there with the core values and so on.
Sure.
Talking, like with Sean Henry's place too. Yeah, it is in company culture. That's pretty unbelievable at that place with the bright green walls and all that stuff too. I still got to go visit there. I told him I would. I definitely want to.
But buckle up when you do. It'll be an experience.
Yeah, he's like, you got to come up here, man, and check out the place. I was like, yeah, definitely. But
absolutely do it.
I mean, it's just awesome to hear what you're saying though too, because I mean, not many people in your industry have that attitude towards it. It's more, and it's in a lot of industries. I shouldn't even say your industries. And I've said this before, it's more about this and not about the overall factor of helping somebody and helping a company get covered the right way. And just hearing what you said, and people that are listening to this too, they'll probably get more of a trust factor in you too, because you don't hear that in your industry.
Sure.
For sure.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
So I like asking this questions too. So what were some major challenges that you have faced in the insurance, what are some major challenges you have faced in the insurance industry that affected your customers? Just briefly hit on a topic. How can we as business professionals prevent these things? So just throughout your own career.
Particularly over here on the independent side, when I have multiple markets, I can go consult on behalf of a client. A lot of guys like me, let's put it in your language, okay? How successful could you be in your company if you could block out all your competition, where you could go in on a job, on a project, and maybe on a bad day you might have one or two competitors. Man, think about how great life would be.
That'd be great. Yeah.
That'd be awesome, right? Well, guess what? It's not only condoned in my industry, but it's kind of the common practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I want to, I would never ever have to compete again in my life with all my existing clients.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? Because during that money zone, 60, 90 days before renewal, I can send your business out to every single carrier that I have available that would write your particular type of business. And no matter how good my submission is, no matter how quality the information I submit is, I get that insurance company. So if I have 10 insurance companies, if you own an ice cream stand and I have 10 carriers that will insure ice cream stands, I send your submission out to all 10 of those companies. No other agent in the world can come in and submit that information to that insurance company. I've insulated myself against all that competition. And that's a huge thing that really, we call that moating, building a moat around yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I see it happen all the time. The only way you can rectify that is I have to come in and have an awkward conversation with you, Bill, I wanted to go to this company, but your current broker sent it out and he's blocked me out of that market and I can't, and you've got to sign this piece of paper giving me permission to have that quote. And then we call that a broker of record. And then I become the broker of record on that market. And then your current guy calls up and says, well, Bill, I was going to, that was going to be my best one. We were going to have, and then all of a sudden you're the bad guy. You're in the middle. I mean, come on, man, what are we doing here? That is the biggest thing to me. That's the game, dude. And that's it does such a disservice to the client. When an insurance agent builds a moat around themselves, never has to compete, because then guess what? Any other legitimate agent that comes in that might be able to provide a good program, they don't have the options. And so now all of a sudden the current agent can just say, okay, I've got 10 insurance companies. Which one's paying the highest commission right now? Okay, that's the one I'm going to pick. Or which one am I on the precipice of earning an incentive trip or a Rolex or something like that? Who can I place this business with so I can cross that threshold? Happens every single day, and very few clients, very few business owners know that side of the insurance industry. And man, it just makes me sick. I don't do that. I don't even take all my clients to market every single year. Because if your company is being sent to market 5 or 6 different carriers by 2 or 3 or 4 different brokers, your company develops a reputation within the insurance industry, and you didn't do anything about it. You didn't earn that reputation. Your agent did it to you. So that type of gamesmanship, that type of stuff just makes me sick, and I don't do it. If your policy looks good and your renewal's coming in good and it's solid, we're going to stick there. Because if I send your business into a company and they can see that they've looked at your company 5 years in a row with 4 different agents, they're going to look at it and be like, we're not messing with this. We'll send out a quote because we have to, but we don't really want that business. So those little games, building those moats, blocking out competition, man, it makes me sick. And I just don't do it. And I don't like it. So
yeah.
Well, it's not fair to you.
It's like we talked about. That's what's going to put you eventually above the rest of them too. I mean, I would have never even known that's going on in the background, but it is the sales world. It reminds me of Wolf of Wall Street in a way.
It kind of is. I mean, our industry rewards speed, not quality. And so if all of my competition is over here playing the speed game and trying to play this game, man, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to play my own game. I'm going to take care of my people the right way, and we're not going to play that game. And you know what? I encourage competition. If someone wants to come in and compete with me, let's get it on. I'm good. I'm confident in what I do. I'm confident in my team. I'm confident in my relationships with the carriers. Let's play ball. So it's opposite George. We talk about that all the time. That episode of Seinfeld where George Costanza just does the opposite of everything, and life just starts working out for him. Taking the opposite George approach with so much of this, and man, it works out. It serves my people well.
Well, it's like it's in reflecting on my business personally. I mean, and even in real estate too. I mean, if you take the time to actually go above and beyond for a customer, I usually just got a customer from in real estate off of an advertisement on social media, but not getting into that. Just they actually were with another real estate agent, and they had a horrible experience. The agent didn't go above and beyond. It was more of a speed thing to try and make money off of them, get that commission, and they saw it, they felt it, and then now they came back, found me, and I've been taking the time with them to find the exact right property. I've been honest with them up front. They put an offer on a house that was a good offer, and then the seller came back at a high price and said, I'm not moving. I think my house is worth that. Well, what did I do? A lot of the typical agents would have said, oh yeah, the seller's probably right. You should probably up your price to his price. Me, right. I said, it ain't worth that. I was like, you can build a house for probably same as that, and then you can also put it on a similar lot as that too. I was like, don't even. And plus looking at that house, ain't it's not worth that much money. So
Yeah.
being honest with them up front, they appreciated that. And they even said it to me too. But even in the building industry, I mean, it's just taking the time to do things right. I've gotten 3 customers off of going through one of our houses while we were doing punch outs on one of our houses because they
Yeah.
saw we marked up so much stuff. And I told them, I was like, as we are going in, I go, look at what I marked and see if you see what I see.
Yeah.
And they'll look and they'll be like, well, what is it? I'll say, you don't see that little paint drop there?
Yep.
I want my
Yep.
painter to sand that down. I don't want to drop there. And they're just like,
Right.
this is what we want. This is what we like. We want
Absolutely.
somebody
Yep.
that pays attention, So it's the small details, man. It's the long term, like we
Yeah.
talked about, big time.
100%.
So
100%.
I
Yeah.
want to get into you. I've been asking this question to everybody lately, and it's a good question here. I want to get into you personally. So you are part of an amazing company that you continue to grow as far as in insurance and with people more and more. What lessons have you learned throughout your journey that we should all apply to our own business or lives that can help us grow?
Oh man.
It's a big
Um,
one.
Man, we could do an hour on that just by itself. But two things, dude: ownership and intentionality, right? So, on the ownership front, I'm sure you know who Jocko Willink is, and a lot of your
Mm-hmm.
listeners probably know who Jocko is. And I'll actually see Jocko tonight when we're here in San Francisco. And I mean, that guy has changed my perspective on everything in life, and his big thing is taking ownership and,
Mm-hmm.
extreme ownership. I mean, everyone's heard that from Jocko, right? So, even if you can't control, quote unquote, can't control what happens or how a situation goes or whatever, you can control how you respond to it. Ed Milet, one of the guys he's a syndicate, him and Andy, Ed's big thing is, things happen to us, not, things happen for us, not to us. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Ed. Things happen for us, not to us. Okay. So, no matter what that is in life, things happen for us so that we can understand and we can learn and adapt and even, terrible, awful things, you just look at what just happened with Kobe Bryant, that's a terrible, terrible situation. Think about what that's done for everybody that has a daughter. That's really forced me to really focus in on, okay, I have to be much more, focused on my relationship with my daughter, my wife, tragic, awful, terrible situation. But you know what? It made me sad, and I've taken a lot of lessons from it.
Mm-hmm.
So that just taking ownership over things and is so huge. And just beyond that, like I said, intentionality. Intentionality about who your influences are. I was in the Arte Accelerator last year, and I hung out and I watched a lot, and I really vetted Ed and Andy and a lot of the people that were in the syndicate. And last March, I lost a deal to a competitor, and that was it for me. I'm like, I'm not playing that game. I'm not going to have influences in my life that don't move me forward. And so I did everything I could to earn my way into the syndicate this year. And it's been so life-changing. My clients are different. My friends are different. My
Mm-hmm.
circles of influence are different, and that's all intentional. We can't just bob and weave through life, and it hurts sometimes to put an end to the old and usher in the new, but man, it's so necessary for us
Mm-hmm.
to do it. And so, man, ownership over everything, intentionality about who you are, who's around you, those have been such a huge impact for me, just as a person, as a father, as a husband, and as a professional. I have a lot of people to thank for that, and first and foremost, Jocko, Ed, Andy, but the people in the syndicate that are surrounded me now, it's just huge, man. It's huge.
Mm-hmm. Now, every time I ask that question, I love asking that question even more and more because I get such good answers, and they're all different too, but they're all
Yeah.
such great answers. I'm going to compile them all into one thing eventually,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's so great. But
be
I
awesome.
mean, it's what you said is spot on too, and especially, I mean, you know, with just having that impact, even with the Kobe Bryant thing too. I mean, it's a shock to everybody, but and I don't even think he knew how impactful he was too. I
Oh
mean, he
no.
was an
Yeah.
impactful individual, but for
Yeah.
you to say like that whole situation with you and your daughter too, and really realizing what you have and coming closer to her, and I mean, how many other people did it impact that same way? It hit everybody in a bunch of different ways too, you know, because
Right.
we're not
Absolutely.
guaranteed full life on this earth. You don't know what's going to happen,
Absolutely.
and that's that right there's proof of it too. And the guy left behind a heck of a legacy too, but
Yeah.
not just as a
Absolutely.
basketball player, but as a business person and a family man too. So
Absolutely. Yep.
but great answer to that one. I also been asking this too because most people, you know, ask about your past or in what you did in the past from that, and I did in the beginning of this. So I want to know your plans for the future, whether it's business life. Where will Quinten Lovejoy be in the future? Who will you be?
Yeah. Man, some exciting stuff there.
5, 10 years from now, where do you see yourself?
You know, I'm about to launch some brand. Yeah, yeah. So, you know, first I've been working through some branding projects. You know, Crane is a great brand. It's a great, you know, it's a great resource for me. I have some things that I want to brand, you know, that influence me, that have
Mm,
influenced the way I do things, and so I want to create a brand around that. You know, just like a realtor might, you know, have a relationship with Remax, for instance, but they have their own brand, they have their own team, their own
mhm,
identity. We're very close to a launch on that with myself and my team, and that's going to be exciting from a branding standpoint, from being able to put out some content and some things that people can that can just help people day to day.
mhm,
So that's the most immediate thing that's about to happen. You know, the second thing that I'm really excited about is that assessment that I was talking about. I've got a project with a couple of guys in the syndicate, and we're going to we're launching an initiative that can completely disrupt my industry. You know, and the way insurance is written, the way that it is analyzed and presented to the marketplace, and vice versa, how the marketplace provides feedback back to agents. You know, it's just I showed the concept to a guy at our very first syndicate meeting last September, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we could do this on a web-based application, no problem." And I'm like, "Wow, okay." You know, I have a hard time, you know, updating my Facebook profile pic, and this guy's telling me that we can automate these processes and do all this stuff and collect data and do lead gen, and I'm like, sweet, let's do it. You know, so we're gaining some traction on that right now. So that's got me pretty excited. And you know, without my team behind me, I couldn't remove 2% of that focus that's required for my clients. You know, and put it over here into these projects that will ultimately benefit my clients. You know,
mhm.
so yeah, I'm excited about those things right off the bat.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So I always ask this as my last and final question. What exactly do people need to look for when hiring a commercial insurance agent, and why should they choose Quinten Lovejoy as their insurance agent of choice?
Man, um, I'm just good looking. I mean, I think that's the no, I'm playing. um, you know, my number one mission, you know, really is to change how the insurance market has been presented to clients and prospects, and to change how those clients and prospects have been presented to the insurance market. You know, that's a two-way street. And so many prospects, so many clients feel like it's just a one-way street that just benefits the insurance companies, and they just
Mhm,
have to write that premium check every month, and they hate it. You know,
mhm,
and my goal is to change that experience. Um, you know, I've talked about every one of my clients will tell you they've never been asked the questions that we ask. They've never been presented with the process that we present. They've never been advocated for as strongly as we advocate for our clients in the insurance industry and to our insurance carrier partners. You know, we have that proprietary process. We have that secret sauce. I've worked for an insurance company. So like I said, I know how they think. I know why they think it. I know how to leverage the insurance industry's business model in favor of my clients. I know their business model. I know their loss ratios. I know their goals and their objectives. And I know how to leverage all that stuff. I've been in the belly of the beast. I know how to maneuver within it. I know how to operate inside of it. So, that, and I keep going back to my team. They are amazing. I couldn't do what I do without my team. So, I mean, that's what we're about, man. That's what we do. So.
Awesome, man. Awesome. This has been great. So much great information as always. And it was, thanks for taking the time to come on too.
You bet. Happy to do it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy and now you're always traveling. You're in San Francisco now. So
Yeah.
Last and final thing, because I know you're on social media. So where can people connect with you? And I know you got some stuff, like you said, coming up in the future too, as far as social media and everything. So where can people find you?
Yeah, that future stuff, we'll be blasting it out on social media once it launches. I'm on all the typical platforms, IG, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can find me at Q Lovejoy on all of those. Not doing TikTok yet, have to have my daughter show me how to use that, but you're not going to get a lot of rap videos out of me or whatever the heck goes on over there. You won't find me there. But yeah, IG, Facebook, LinkedIn, Q Lovejoy. You can find me there. My email is qlovejoy@craneagency.com. And anybody can call or text my cell anytime, 816-390-6835. That bad boy strapped to my hip 24 hours a day. And I'm happy to help anybody any way, big or small, that I can. So.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Yep. Quinten, thanks again, man. This has been a ton of value on a topic that, I actually enjoyed to hear myself, being in the construction industry. So I really appreciate you coming on, man.
You bet, man. I appreciate you having me. It was a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
Yeah, this was awesome. So thanks again, and I will see you guys on the next episode.